Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're having group shrinking and shrinking, but we're actually a really cool panel. We decided we're going to make this fun for you. So we're here to discuss AI application for the purpose of customer experience. And I think there's no better panel we could have assembled here. All of these leaders have a lot of experience, and we're going to try and share some best practices. We're going to share more about what they have experienced and give you an insight into where everything is going. So with that, maybe I can have each one of you very quickly introduce yourself and what you work on. What's your sort of favorite thing about AI?
Good afternoon, everyone. I represent Quality Kiosk. We as an organization is focused on using robots and artificial intelligence for automation, data insights, and agility. So that's where we are focused on.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, everyone. I know you're waiting for lunch. Please hang on. Okay, you guys are gonna have a 5-star lunch coming after. Okay. My name is Bayu Febriaji. I'm from DBS Bank. I run the corporate banking chatbot. Her name is Joy. So yeah. So I got my team here as well. So hey, you guys.
Hi, I'm Natalia Kazura from FWD Insurance, and we are a digital insurer. Our goal is to use technology to serve our customers better, so continuously finding the ways how we can change the way people feel about insurance. And I'm happy to talk about some of the initiatives we're working on here.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dilip Krishnan. I'm part of the business transformation team with OCBC Bank, Consumer Finance the division. So I take care of the API initiatives and open banking, squarely fitting in artificial intelligence into it. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Juliana. So I head up NTUC Income digital transformation. We have been in this journey for the last 3 years, and so far have already successfully achieved a full suite digitization across all our lines of business.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Prabhat Singh. I am responsible for data sciences and analytics at GSK. And my team is responsible for embedding data sciences from product development, to commercial life cycle or commercial launch of the products. Been there in this role, for about 4 years. That is me today. Prior to this role, I was in consulting, investment banking, etc. So happy to be here today.
Thank you. So let's begin. There's a lot to talk about, and I wanted to make sure that we also meet the requirements of the audience. I see a lot of IT professionals here. And one of the first things, actually, why don't we talk a little bit about role of AI, role of IT when it comes to AI projects. Because what we're seeing is that a lot of AI projects are executed by lines of business and data teams, where AI IT gets invited at the end of the process just to kind of run the systems. So why don't we begin?
Yeah, so what we have observed, since we are working with a lot of organizations on the banks, insurance, and fintech, one of the key challenges for the IT department has been, can they talk from a business metrics or a business perspective, KPIs? For example, if you are attempting machine learning or autonomous intelligence, the business wants to know how is it going to benefit us. So what I have observed, one of the key things that we are helping our customers is defining those business KPIs. For example, if I use autonomous intelligence, can I increase my conversion rate by 50%? Can it generate more revenue? Or if there's a customer experience issue, what is the loss it's making for me? So I think IT needs to be more business-centric, business KPI. That's what my experience is.
Great, thank you. Bye.
Okay. Typically, or rather traditionally, in most companies, you have the business and then you have the technology. In DBS, we tried a different approach. So we call it the platform. Okay, we have 33 different platforms. So a platform is basically two in a box, business and technology together, working on a platform. So for example, we have an enterprise level platform called Chatbot. where business and technology are there together. The budget is also on a platform basis, so it's no longer a business budget or technology budget so whenever we do something, we do it together from the beginning, right? And also, I see a trend in DBS that a lot of the business side is actually more empowered to do a lot of the things themselves in terms of experiments. So we do a lot of experiments ourselves without the help of technology because there's so much, platforms out there where you can just create something, create a prototype, and then test with customers just to validate your idea before even going to technology and say, here's what we want to do.
Great answer. Thank you. Natalia.
Working on AI solutions, because we are a customer-focused insurance, we start with the customer journey. So we go through the design thinking, look at each part of the journey and where customers have issues. So for example, last year we released our chatbot, and the chatbot, of course, answers general questions, but also it enables customers to file claims within a few minutes through the chatbot, which at that time was the first on the market to do that. To figure out that was the pain point, we basically talked to the customers, and IT team was part of that discussion from the beginning, working very closely with the CX team, design team, figuring out what are the problem statements, developers working with the customer support, and then creating the journey based on that feedback. And we find that's the most efficient way to build the features, especially the features that are adding value to the customers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rightly mentioned, so IT is no more the tail end of the journey. They are part and parcel of the entire journey when it comes to defining or understanding customer pain points, curating use cases. IT becomes a part and parcel. So that's where the business priority also comes in. So that's the move which most of the financial institutions are also moving towards. And where that adds value is we are able to cut short in terms of timelines and also articulate it really well to our stakeholders, in this case, the IT. And if there are questions, you clarify then and there and get it sorted, so that becomes an easier process and much more efficient way to get things out of the way. Yeah.
Thank you.
So at Income, I think currently our IT strength is about 300 people, and our digital transformation team is about 40 packs. So we work very closely with our IT team across with all our business units to define actually what is the intelligence that we want to bring into the organization. So for chatbots wise, we have since launched 3 external chatbots across our HR. So that's for like recruitment of our management associates, graduate trainees. We also launched our health insurance chatbot as well, where you can actually ask anything on the income shield. We have also launched our Facebook or Messenger chatbot, where you can actually purchase a travel insurance under 5 minutes via credit card online as well. For other kind of business, we actually look into robotic process automation and also claims automation as well with our IBM Watson about 2 years ago as well. So these are the several areas that we look across all our lines of business and try to intensely think how we can put customer first in thinking about their whole entire experience and how do we then work closely with IT throughout the design and implementation phase to roll out all the technology and execute them as well.
Okay, so from my perspective, given the pharmaceutical industry, there are 2 phases or 2 stages where we see application of AI, and we are very actively engaging to develop AI platforms in those spaces. One is around the product development itself. I think a lot of you would have heard about how AI is getting embedded into molecular biology and the structural stability of the molecules, for example. So a lot of our R&D spends goes into the molecule development, which actually goes into the pharmaceutical products and how those come together to form the drug that which is commercially viable. So I think that is something where a big part of AI investment is currently going on. These are early stages of product development and AI interface which is being implemented there. The second part is about the commercial launch and the commercial application of the products, which is where our quest to identify next billion users. GSK as a company already reaches billion plus people across the world, and our quest is to reach to the next billion. That is where we see a lot of application of AI, where we can harvest and use plethora of data which is available internally or on the secondary sources to really create insights to understand, what uses, occasions, could be for our products and how best, we can interact with our consumers. So those are, different two stages under which, we are using AI in a big way. Not to say that we have completely cracked the code, but this is a journey that we are under.
Do you have any best practices you'd like to share from your experience for IT specifically, just because they don't always participate at every stage?
Right. So I think, I believe that sometimes, we understate, the complexity of, the data which, we need to bring together for any AI or machine learning algorithms to work efficiently. I think, the use cases, have been, and before we started the journey to really orchestrate, the platforms in which can, bring about, AI technology in a big way. We first thought about how we are going to collapse the functional verticals and the silos which exist in the company. So we are talking about the media data, your consumer data, the supply chain, the network, all of that data which exists, and how do you really bring that together? Now you have the technology to really bring about efficiency in terms of how the data could be stitched and integrated. That was the first example where we invested heavily before even actually embarking upon any AI platforms to really first make sure that we had the data in the fashion which was ready to be adopted for AI implementation.
That's great. Thank you for answering 3 questions in one. Data unification, IT advice, and what your company is doing. Let's involve the audience a little bit, just so that you guys don't fall asleep. How many of you are involved with the bot projects? Anybody's company using bots? It's okay, just raise your hand so we can see you better. Okay, so not too many. How many of you have an experience as consumers or customers with bots? Okay, some more. And how many of you have a great experience with bots? Okay, that gave us a really good answer. Okay, so let's go into the bot question a little bit. Would you, each one of you, think about what specifically your company is doing around bot technology and how that is going, and what are your measures that you put in place to ensure that the customer bot interaction, especially if it's an agitated customer, which I personally had an experience once. I was not very happy with the company, and they tweeted with bots and asked me to contact them. When I did, they had no idea why I was contacting them. So please proceed.
So we have been working with a lot of banks, insurance, and fintech, and most of them have critical operations. Now, when you're talking about a bot, one of the major issues we have seen in the application is the quality of the data. In fact, as a recent survey by Forbes, the loss due to poor data quality itself is around $3 trillion USD in 1 year. So before you want to go about bots or autonomous intelligence, where customers, we have been helping them is building data governance using machine learning and autonomous intelligence to see that we are able to have the right coverage of scenarios that impact customer experience. So before you get into building a bot for customer experience or interactions on various requirements, the data quality is of paramount importance. So that's where we are coming from. From an applicability perspective, we are using bots in different ways. We have a 200-seater customer experience NOC, which 24/7 is monitoring all web and mobile applications and seeing that they are able to deliver service properly. So customers like Citibank, we have AIA Group, we have BTPN Bank, all their applications we are seeing 24/7, what kind of experience they're giving to their customers using bot. That's one. Second, we are using bots in real time or near real time to monitor critical journeys. Just like Natalia was explaining, customer journeys, whether it's from a fund transfer or from a customer acquisition or servicing their requirements, we are able to track in real time using bots what is the experience they're having, where is the problem occurring, they are not able to complete their journeys, and what immediate remediation measures has to be taken to correct it. So majorly from our perspective, when we have been working with banks and insurance and fintech, we are using bots, to check what kind of an experience, and if the experience is poor, how can I help it to become improved? And second, how can we create a unified view, a unified lake using bots, where to improve customer experience, what new things do we need to build? So that's what I've been seeing as a trend. But the data quality is one of the factors we believe. Some of the bot deployments is not working because there's a lack of trust. So when the bot gives an excellent experience, oh, we have solved this problem, business users, they inherently have a lack of trust. But on what data are you basing it? So that's what my experience is on how to use bot for customer experience.
Thank you, that's great. Bayu, you have an interesting also
Yeah,
example.
this question didn't start on a positive note, so this is a tough one, right? Not even my team member raised their hand up, who had a great experience with a bot. So, okay, we're gonna have a one-to-one discussion. Okay. Anyway, everyone has bad experience with bot, right? Only one person raised his hand up. The thing about bot is we research over 200 bots over the world, right? And we see different kinds of bots. One of the key reasons why bot experience is so bad is we're always trying to design bot for everyone, and we try to satisfy everyone. And when people come and chat with your bot, people come with a very high expectation. You should be able to answer my question, right? Well, that's actually the wrong approach. We realize that this is not the right approach. We're not supposed to compete with AWS, Amazon Alexa. They have 7,000 annotators, people who are improving the bot every single day. We have 3, okay? So, I told my boss, if you want to be up there with Alexa, well, you have to give me, $100 million probably, right? So that's not going to happen. So we took a different approach. We realized that the best bot design experience is actually to focus on certain customers, right? Certain customers that will bring you revenue, and also certain customers who speak or chat with you the most, right? You focus on this group of customers, you understand their persona, and then you design your bot according to it, right? So if you have a bad experience with bot, it's probably because it's not designed for you.
Okay. So one of you mentioned to me that you actually label the bot icon or whatever, so the person actually knows that they're speaking to a bot versus a human being. That's probably one of the easy best practices.
Yes, one of the design principles is to be transparent to your customers. You really have to, let them know that whether you're speaking to a bot or a human, that is very, very key, because the moment you put a bot or a human, right, the moment you put a bot in front of your customer, suddenly they have very high expectation, or even like they're ready for negative experience. They're ready, somehow they're ready, right? But when it comes to human, you experienced it yourself, we shared before this. When it comes to human, then it's different. Okay, I'm gonna tone it down a little bit, right? Even when you're chat, you see the chat transcripts between human to human, so much nicer, When it comes to bot, people use caps, people use, foul languages, right? Just to vent their frustration. So, yeah, you gotta be transparent to your customers if you're showing a bot or a human.
That's where our multimodal interface is going to help when somebody starts frowning and
Yep.
doing all that. Yeah. Thank you. Natalia.
I agree with Bayu that being focused when building chatbots and being very clear what use case you want to support is critical to have for better customer experience. So for example, in our case at FWD, we have multiple chatbots servicing different use cases. Certain for agents in other countries, not in Singapore. In Singapore, we have no agents. But the chatbot that we built in Singapore, there are 2 main use cases right now that enabled is one servicing customers when we don't have our customer support team enabled. So that's after 8 p.m. Before we start again the next morning. So that in the past, those customers would not be serviced, and they'll spend quite a long time looking through general FAQs on our website. So here, this is something that we added value to customers, reducing the amount of time they have to go browse through our site. That was one use case. The second use case is claims processing. Sometimes it wasn't super clear to the customers how to file it, and we are just walking them through within 2 minutes, actually asking them clear questions, what they need to, kind of documents they need to submit, by when, and sharing with them the next steps. So that helped us, but those are very concrete use cases. And again, in general, in terms of chatbots, I think in a couple years, there will be way more hands going up in the air, because all of us here working on the chatbots, right? The more data we have, then better customer experience we'll create in the future. And we also need to be realistic about technology, right? NLP is developing, both for text, voice. In 2 to 3 years, the technology will be so much more advanced. Amazon Alexa, the Google services, Microsoft services will be able to leverage and utilize the best one for a specific use case. So I think in a couple of years, we pretty much will be very comfortable with the chatbot experiences.
Yeah. So, rightly mentioned, in terms of adoption, yes, the problem statement needs to be very clear, and the customer segment needs to be very clear. So that's the thought process that OCBC Bank took long back with the chatbot Emma, which is rightly there. We started off with the home loan journey. So wherein essentially the thought process was, the bigger problem statement is, how can you break down the complexity of a financial product? So mortgage in this case is a financial product which has got many layers to it, and it's a long gestation period when it comes to decision making. So we took that as a problem statement and said, what will be the right opportunity for us to play with? So which is where the chatbot Emma kicks in. What are the set of questions which comes in? So there was another question also which popped up, which said, should you as a bot ask question to the customer? Because we treat the customer as a king. So we let the customer ask the question. So we serve the customer in turn. So that was one of the design principles that we kicked in and said, let the customer ask the question, and bot helps you in answering those questions, or rather helping you prompt those questions which the customer can ask thereafter. So that has actually led to a great customer journey, so to speak. And mortgage specifically, we were able to do lead collection close to $80 million in last year alone in terms of loan disbursement. So those are some specific use cases where bots have used. Rightly so, adoption is very few hands right now in the audience. But eventually, 2-3 years down the line, if the problem statement is close to your heart, if that solves you for a day-to-day usage, a classic example could be your bus uncle chatbot, which is available today. Most of us actually use it on a day-to-day basis because I want to track what time is my bus coming in. So that is a specific problem statement gets addressed, and there is a repeatability and frequency when that bot needs to be used again and again. So our design principle, just taking a step back into our design principles of what fits in specifically is, we start with 3 big pillars. We say, can your product help understand the customer? So that's the first pillar, which is where your data analytics, unifying your entire data, everything comes together. The second big pillar is, can you create an uninterrupted journey, which is the uninterrupted journey across different ecosystems. That becomes number 2. And the third one is, can you unlimit the customer by giving him more options to play with you, even without realizing that he actually plays with you? So the 3 big pillars that we talk about is understanding the customer, uninterrupting the customer, and unlimiting the customer. So that's been our key, and that's been the focus for us to take the chatbot journey forward. And now what options that we're looking at is exactly the same problem statement. Can you break down the financial products complexity, making it much easier to offer it to customers? Chatbots specifically can be the right interface for us to break it down with artificial intelligence kicking in. Can you do dynamic credit risk assessment for the customer, which is where transactions starts kicking in. It's the comfort, it's the hook, it's the problem statement, addressing the specific customer segment, and there you're home, pretty much. Yeah.
Thank you.
For us, I guess when we were building our chatbots, I think we differentiated between the hype and reality. And then we were very deliberate in the functions that the chatbot delivers, right? So for example, when we built up a HR chatbot, it was really to minimize operations by our HR's people, right? So anytime when an application is received, you get the email response, and this person on the back will just be looking through all the emails one by one, right? But with a HR chatbot, in that sense that all the operational duties are actually resolved in that sense that the requirements are all stated out by the chatbot, and then the audience actually responds towards the chatbot in submitting all the requirements as well. So that operationally resolves for us the duties that it's supposed to solve. But between the hype and reality, I think that's where we also understand where the expectation from the consumers are really different. What do they expect? When we launched our chatbots for our health insurance and also for our travel, it was more launched towards as an MVP for us to gain learnings, what does the consumer really needs. But to translate it from an MVP into an enterprise version, there is much more investment that is required because the customer essentially can ask anything, right? So we were deliberate in actually building it for a specific business function and not for it to actually anticipate across all the needs of the customers. So for example, when we were launching our life insurance online, we were deliberate in actually not going with a chatbot because the complexity of actually a life insurance cannot be anticipated by a chatbot, and there's just too many ways that a consumer might ask the questions differently, deviating from how the chatbot really works. So we were deliberate in actually putting in an algorithm design for a robo-advisory to actually work out, to actually guide the consumers in providing the right answers so that we can actually lead towards recommending the right product as well. So I think this has to be carefully thought out into whether it's a hype or reality, and then deliberately thinking about what should we as a business function really build to anticipate the customer or meet the customer expectation as well.
Yeah. So chatbots or bots, for that matter, is not that relevant for pharmaceutical industry or consumer healthcare industry as such. But I think we are trying to take the same concept slightly differently and try to use that in a B2B setup, not so much into B2C setup that other people spoke about. And I think for us, it's important to engage with our experts or the physicians, etc. And that is where we are finding some usability of bots, which is absolutely a different ball game as compared to regular bots that you think or experience as a consumer. I think other aspect of bots that we are experimenting right now is in terms of the sales fulfillment process, where it's more an application of recommendation engine rather than bots, where you are taking automated orders based on what the stock requirements from the retail partners could look like. So not necessarily a bot in our environment, but a different application of the same thing.
Thank you, Prabhat.
Yeah.
So I would like to also see if audience has any questions for the panel, because we're about 16 minutes away from the end of the session, and I want to give an opportunity to the audience to ask any questions. If not, we can carry on, but if we do, then let's proceed with that.
Hi, hello. Just a quick question. For your chatbots, do you all do in-house, or do you all build it in-house, or do you all use third-party solutions?
I can answer that first. So we tried with third-party solution, but didn't work out so well. So we changed to in-house. We realized that we got talents within DBS were able to do much better. Yeah.
So question, is that because the algorithm, so were you taking their algorithm that was pre-trained, or were you using your data to train that algorithm?
It was also a realization of the approach. So like I said, previously we thought that we should have a very good NLU, natural language understanding, right? And I think most vendors offer NLU, right, capabilities. But again, like I said before, it's not about the NLU. We're not trying to design for everyone. So the best approach is like what Juliana shared also, you have to guide customer. You have to create guided conversations, modules, and yeah, it works best than just trying to answer all kinds of questions.
Anybody else?
For us, I think we land on the approach of a hybrid model where we work with our service providers. But I think from testing from natural language processing towards machine learning, I think the hybrid model works well because then we bring in our own experts into building the algorithm together with the service providers. And I think that's essentially enhanced the experience of how the chatbot will work better for our customers.
Yep.
For us, we build it with a partner for most of the markets. For the new markets, because FWD is in 9 countries, some of the new markets, because the platforms offered by big tech giants becoming better and better, we actually looking at potentially building ourselves and see how that goes.
Yeah. So for us, when we started off, the main objective was a quick go-to-market. So we partnered with a service provider to take it live. And now that we have certain set of understanding that we wanted to do an enterprise level, different bots, both internal, external, etc. So we are open to a hybrid model right now.
Great answers, thank you. Anybody else? There's one right here.
Hi, thanks for sharing. My name is Patricia. I've been in the business side, in supply chain for the last 25 years, and I just moved to the IT side. So it's very interesting that you say you need both to make it work. But in organization structure, you have business that have the budget, that probably chief of supply chain officer, you have the CDO, which is chief data officer, your chief digital officer, and then you have CIO, which is of course the group CIO. So in the end, who actually own the budget or actually, in the end, decides and take accountability?
In DBS, as I shared earlier, we have platforms, right? So which is a business and technology sharing the same platform, and a budget is set at that platform level. And
who owns it?
Who owns it?
You have a chief platform officer.
We have platform leads, right? And platform leads is always coming from, there's not one platform lead, it's always 2, business and technology, right? And what's interesting, because this one goes all the way up to the CEO, so Piyush would have this session, right? We call it Platform Connect, where he would sit down in a panel like this and then have the platform leads present like a pitch. What have they done, in a year? And then Piyush will go up and then he will rank them, which platforms actually did the best. So it's really a totally different approach, even from the high management. Yeah.
At FWD, I can just jump in very quickly because we look at it from customer experience. Our head of customer experience owns it because in Singapore, that would be Luzanne. She's in charge of customer support as well as all the flows on the web. So in that case, we believe we build the right thing for our customers. If we get the tech team assigned on it to own it and budget it, might not be the right experience we want to achieve. But for the WD across the region, it's a CX team that owns it.
So from what I have observed across 300 plus customer base that we have, this is precisely one of the key innovators or challenges we are facing ourselves. There is CMO, CDO, CTO, and it's a very valid problem. Now, what we have been observing, and again, largely our customer base is around across banks, insurance, and the fintechs, it's an interesting trend. Largely, this has been moving very fast, where there is a department called Chief Customer Experience. Those are the ones. However, what people are now realizing that IT is not a cost center, but IT can be an enabler to generate revenue. What we have been observing, the CIOs is now been able to speak in a simplified business language with clear business KPI outcomes. And we have been seeing in the last 8 to 9 months, slowly the CTO is being given more and more responsibility. So it's either customer experience as a department who owns this, But largely, we are seeing now there's more clarity with the IT taking ownership. A, because they're able to speak more clearly on the business side, and B, they are able to do what precisely, my friend said, quick time to market. Now, even if you have a business requirement, IT at the end has to develop and deliver and deploy. If they are engaged from day one, they will help you to achieve it faster. But the challenge is, if a business guy comes to me, and I'm an IT guy, I'll say, oh, you know what, we need this technology, that technology. And he says, I don't understand. So that's where we have seen things changing. So in my opinion, the recent trend that we have been observing, CTOs are the ones who are going to take more decisions on the AI, bots, and machine learning.
I think at Income, we operate very differently. So the digital transformation, which is our CDO, will then own the budget for any digital transformation project across the organization. Right? So we will fund the project from design to implementation, and IT is then brought in as an enabler. So whatever goes, business speaks first, right? So business makes the final call on the decision, and strategy across the entire organization, we are aligned towards what do we want to bring forward the organization as a digital transformation and a customer experience. The aftermath will be IT is then brought in as an enabler to actually see how we can actually efficiently execute the entire project. So from design to implementation, we will fund it entirely. And then when it then gets handover, which will then do the knowledge transfer from our digital transformation into our IT for BAU work. So that will then continue the change management, where we actually modernize the entire IT infrastructure and also change what's more important is the customer experience on the front end. So I think that's how we work at Income to actually permeate digital transformation throughout the entire organization.
If your question is who's paying the bills, till say 2 years back, it was the digital team, like she was saying, the digital officer holding the budget and doing it. But again, most of the financial institutions, so to speak, have moved towards the platform and funding approach, like he was mentioning. So the platform funding is every single platform. Chatbot becomes a platform, internet banking becomes a platform, mobile banking becomes a platform. So that funding approach, it's jointly owned between tech and us, and that's how we run the entire journey there.
Yeah. No, I think it is pretty much the same. I think irrespective of whatever organization you put together, you have to basically talk to each other and it's ultimately it's about how you make your ways of working much more efficient. It's a complex org design problem as well, which we can't solve here. But of course, there are multiple combinations and iterations of the same thing being experimented everywhere.
Thank you, Prabhat. Any more questions?
One at the back.
My job is getting easy here. I love it. Let's keep going.
You should go for lunch.
It's a simple question is that how do you relate the customer experience to human experience, to an emotions which comes in the customer journey? Do you have any in the industry, any AI model which does that, whether it is B2B, B2C, D2C, or anything? So how do you relate this? Because emotions in bot, what happens is emotions are not captured, and human experience is totally not captured. You can try it out. So how do you relate the customer experience to human experience?
That's a really good question. I'd like to start. So with one of the vision for our chatbot is to have that, not just IQ, but also EQ, like what you said, right? Emotion. So we went off saying, okay, there's this thing called sentiment analysis, right? So what does this engine do? Oh, it's able to give you a positive or negative score to whatever sentence is given by customer, right? So, and we thought that, rather than having a thumbs up, thumbs down, which nobody ever, gives a care, right? No one ever gives us feedback anyway, right? So this would be a better alternative to measuring the customer satisfaction, right? So we set off, let's do an experiment on this. Let's try to build it ourselves. So we got 4 interns, right? They're part of this prestigious program called Unicorn. And then we gave them this task, okay, we want to build sentiment analysis engine. You have 3 months to do it, okay? I'm not very confident. I don't think you guys could do it, but yeah, here's the task, okay? And, they did it in 2 months. They built an engine. The industry standard for sentiment analysis is actually at 65%. They built an engine that is accurate to 91%, which is so much better than standard, right? So it was so good that we've decided, okay, I know this is just an intern project, but we'll put it into production right away. So the answer to your question is we built a sentiment analysis engine.
Just to add to his thoughts, right? So one of the missing pieces when it comes to emotion is there is no context stickiness in any bot's context. So there's no context stickiness, and the shared context, which is when I as a customer start my journey in a bot, the bot doesn't understand in what context am I even asking the question. Am I a stranger or do I know her previously? When we both discuss, there is a common context when we discuss. That shared context is missing, which becomes a filter even before that emotion things or your sentimental analysis kicks in. So that is an evolving model, rightly so, that there are not many models out in the market, but there are people who are trying to develop such models wherein you can do a shared context. And the concept of good friction, which kicks in, which is, we're all talking about frictionless journeys, et cetera, but good friction is when the level of complexity or the risk goes up. There is a little bit of friction that you need to create in terms of layering. So that, again, actually helps in reducing the emotions when the customer starts interacting with the bot. So in my opinion, these are the three different things that the industry is working towards. The shared context, the context stickiness, and possibly the good friction. Once these things kicks into picture, then that emotion thing will sort of narrow down. That's my thought around.
So what I have observed, some of the customers with which we are working, we are tackling this issue in a little different way. So first we have a metrics called a golden rule of customer delight. Any new customer, his experience for the first 7 days is very critical from a customer perspective. So what we are doing with our customers is we have a bot which keeps on going through all the critical journeys every 5 minutes and seeing that there is no brokerage of experience. So the idea here is to prevent from an customer experience poor to come in. So whenever a customer is onboarded new across channels or across journeys, these customers are tracked in real time, and a bot is simulating and saying, are they getting a good experience or not getting a good experience? That's one way. Second, when you talk about emotions, typically customers, when they get frustrated or irritated, they need quicker actions. What we have been building with organizations on AI is predictive engineering. Can I predict in advance there is an issue that is going to happen for this kind of customer because there is a pattern? And if you think logically, if you've seen all these traffic lights, from green, it becomes orange and then becomes red. Because of the technology and so much of advancement, typically from green, suddenly technology does not go to red. There is an orange. There is a warning. If you're able to read the warning properly, you can prevent from the issue happening. So the way our customers are approaching this sentiment, like they rightly said, it's going to take time to really come up with a solution. But can I prevent from an issue happening is what is the another alternative approach.
The biggest, sorry, I just need to add a little bit. The biggest challenge about sentiment analysis is actually sarcasm, which is especially true in Singapore. Yeah. and when it comes to chat or text, right, there's no tone, right? You could be saying hello or hello. It's so much different. Yeah. Right. So that's the biggest challenge. Yeah.
Well, thank you. We're almost done. I had one question that I think is quite important because most of you come from highly regulated industries. Do you want to make a quick comment on whether regulation is getting in a way of you leveraging AI, just because of data privacy, because of a number of other things?
Right. So very quickly, from the sector, especially banking, to be exclusive, for us, a lot of autonomous, intelligence-based use cases, the regulator is not allowing. And that is because they want to understand, before a machine takes a decision, they need to see, is it whose accountability? So for banking and insurance, we have seen some of the use cases from a customer angle, it's heavily regulated. But enterprise customers, as well as government institutions, they've been able to move fast. So it's a major challenge, if you ask me.
Thank you. Bye.
The answer is yes. Short answer is yes. They're going to be a blocker for us. So we should automate them. But here's the thing. The concept of explainable AI. Once you create a model that is sophisticated enough, right, is it really important for us to be able to explain it? That's a question you have to think about, right? At some point, all these new AIs out there, especially the one that focuses on games, they're trying to build AI to beat StarCraft players, right, online games, and they're coming up with these moves that were practically, non-existent. Right? No one's ever used such a strategy before, but yet they won, right? They won the game. So how did they come up with it? The question is it really important for us to understand or not? So it's going to be a challenge for the regulators if they impose such thing. Your model, you have to be able to explain it. Probably it's not going to happen.
Thank you.
We deal with terabytes of private customer data, and I believe we should be regulated. It is the right thing to take care of how we treat that private information. I would say MAS is a really good partner because we continuously have an open discussion, what works, what doesn't, what are some of the challenges, and how we can address it together. In some of the other markets across the region, that is way more challenging for us. Having to explain what goes into AI model, what data points, I quite like that because sometimes when we talk to some partners, they're like, oh, this is a black box AI model. I'm like, that's not going to work for me. I have to explain to my regulator what goes inside. So then we have to understand ourselves before we start that partnership. And it actually helped to have those discussions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, rightly mentioned, it's a very square balance between having radical ideas, very tangential ideas, out of the box ideas, and then are you fitting within the perimeter that the regulator has defined for you. So whatever models that we try to put around, would you be able to explain, like you were saying, would you be able to explain the outcome of it and the impact on the customer? That makes the difference. So if you're able to showcase the impact to the customer, a negative, positive, whatever impact that comes in, and you fit into the perimeter that the regulator has defined, you should be good to go. Yeah.
I think we think regulation is there to protect the consumers. So for that, we work very closely with MAS to actually understand the guidelines, to understand the challenges that MAS is also facing to protect essentially the Singapore customers. And then within the guidelines, I guess we brought in the design thinking approach to also bring MAS or the regulators along the journey with us to understand what does the customer actually appreciates, the retention of the customer, the repeated use of it as well. So I think this sets a lot of comfort in actually easing out how the guidelines should be adopted and approached. So for example, the digital advisory that we launched online, those were actually highly communicated with MAS. And then within that, how do we actually work out an envisageable approach towards pushing out the product to the market that actually benefit the consumers?
Yeah, I think much is talked about already. So I would just say that we as an industry have a responsibility also to define the regulations around privacy, not just to just receive regulations which various governments are trying to put together. I think there is a lot in which has to happen in terms of the privacy and how the data is used. Because for our benefit as well, we don't want to make any product which is going to have an adverse action or reaction to the end consumer. So I think it's a joint responsibility between governments and industries as a whole. Sure.
Thank you very much. I think this was a really interesting panel, and I appreciate all of our panelists for being candid and very knowledgeable. And I also appreciate you, audience, for making my job easier. I didn't have to ask half of my questions. So with that, we're finishing this session, but I think we're all going to be here. So feel free to approach us and ask any additional questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, panelists.